Hello, I'm Peter Dunsmore and welcome to this series where I'm going to show you some basic veneering techniques. Here's an effect you can have using 4 pieces of burr. So long the pieces are all the same size and cut in the same way, which they are because they've come out the pack, I can butt these 4 pieces together like this and have a central focal point, which is a 4-way reverse match, which is particularly attractive with this grain. Alternatively, we can experiment and turn the veneers over and see what effect that is. As you can see, this is the same veneers out the same packet, and all I've done is turn them over. But it's a completely different pattern in the middle, and this would look wonderful on a tabletop or the top of a chest of drawers or something like that, something you could look at. And these are beautiful markings. It's reversed this way and across the way, and it's a 4-way match. This is 2 pieces of walnut veneer. Nothing special about it. It's not any burr or anything. It's just an attractive figured piece of walnut. But I've reversed the 2 pieces, as you can see down the line, and glued them onto a piece of fairly thin plywood. And this is going to be a tray when I've made the sides and put a handle either end. But it gives you quite a good idea of what you can achieve with the reverse matching. Now if I get some methylated spirits and just wipe that on, it doesn't raise the grain, and it will actually it gives you an idea of what the polished piece would look like while it's still wet. Evaporates very, very quickly, but it doesn't damage the wood. It'll let you see a little clearer what this piece looks like, and you can quite clearly see the reversing throughout. You can almost make all sorts of pictures out of this. You can see a little nose and 2 eyes and some ears. You can almost see a human being here. You can see 2 eyes and a nose, maybe some shoulders. It's your imagination, or turn it round the other way. As you can see, some of these veneers become quite buckled and wavy, and they're not easy to lay like this. In fact, it's not a good thing to do. You can see this one here, it's not easy to work with. If you have a look, it's actually very wavy and ripply. Some of the burrs are particularly rippled. This one's not too bad, but I'd still like to flatten it before I laid it. And the way to do this is to get it some water. And I use an old sprayer, just an old Windowline or something similar, kitchen sprayer. And you damp the veneer. And this technique applies to all the veneers, whether it's a curl like this one, or a burr, or even a normal cut veneer, which is slightly wavy. Just spray it lightly with water. You're just moistening it, dampening it. You don't want to saturate it, just enough to damp it. A little bit both sides. That's it. And then I'll press it between a couple of pieces of chipboard. Now, just plain chipboard, there's no need for newspaper or anything like that, because sometimes if it was newspaper, the ink in the paper would stain the veneer, particularly if it's a pale coloured veneer such as a maple burr or a lovely bird's eye maple or something like that. Just plain chipboard. because this absorbs the water. And just gently don't press it down too hard, particularly if it's buckled. If it's very, very buckled, just do it gently. And then just gradually work your way around, tightening up just a little bit more. A bit like the cylinder head on the car, just a little bit each time. So you flatten the veneer and then just put it aside. It's not so much to dry, you put it aside so the chipboard absorbs the moisture out the veneer. There are several things you can stick your veneer onto. This MDF, that's flat, makes a good surface to veneer on, but depending on the project you're making, it's quite heavy. And particularly if it's a writing box or a jewellery box, it would actually add considerably to the weight. This is MDF, much thinner. I think this is 6mm MDF, nice and flat. But the disadvantage I find with MDF is the fact that it's not very water resistant. If there's any water gets on it, it immediately swells up, and then that would ruin any veneer underneath. Another option, which is the one I prefer, is plywood. And this is birch plywood. This is a particularly good quality plywood, and this makes a really ideal surface to veneer on, and it's reasonably waterproof as well, so it doesn't swell up to the same extent as MDF. This is another thinner, cheaper plywood. Again, there's nothing wrong with veneering this. As you saw earlier, this is veneered onto a piece of just cheap plywood, and it's been like this for months. Or solid wood. There's nothing wrong with veneering on solid wood, because it may be you're making a jewellery box or a writing slope or something or other, that when you open the box up you see the inside or you see the edge of the box, and you're actually after the effect, the beauty of the grain of the veneer on the outside with a secondary view inside. So you still get the feeling that it's a solid piece of wood, a solid piece of walnut or mahogany or cherry, but you've opted for the figuring on the outside of the box, or perhaps on the lid you'd like to put some burr, but you still have the feeling of a real wood box. It doesn't have to be made from plywood or MDF. You can still combine a beautiful figured veneer with a solid wood carcass. Something I would point out though, and I do it with solid wood as well, is if it's a thin piece of wood, when you lay the veneer and you glue it down, it tends to stretch the wood, and it can bend the timber underneath. And a way to avoid that is it's quite often necessary to put a balancing veneer on the back. If you look here on this one, it's very, very slightly curved. It doesn't really matter on this because it's going to go into a tray that's going to hold it flat anyway. But depending on the project, you may want to put balancing veneer on the back to balance the, or to counteract the pulling effect of the veneer on this side.